Welcome to this week's episode of Tech Talk. I'm your host, Michael Amargan. Our co-host, Vicquell, is going to be a little bit late today, so don't worry, it's not just me. uh, this week, though, we're going to be... Well, before we get into all that, I want to quickly discuss some changes with everyone. For starters, we apologize for not having a show for the past 2 weeks. One of us was out of the country, family vacation, so that was happening. Plus, we wanted to take that time and work on a rebranding, and that's actually what's been happening. And so, that week we were working on changing our Tech Talk show to become more tech. And the reason for that is mainly because we have a lot of podcasts and other like YouTube channels and whatnot out there that are already called or very similarly named Tech Talk. And when we were discussing this with other people, because we're trying to work on some stuff in the back, and for later on, we noticed that it was actually pretty hard to find us. We actually had to go through a fair amount of stuff just to find us there, and it raised our awareness in a sense. So we decided we would change the name. Hence, we're now called More Tech. So if you are wondering where this More Tech came from, well, there you go. And we've been doing some rebranding with that, as like I mentioned. So that's where the new intro screen comes in, our offline screens, our, if you've seen them before, our Be Right Back screen, and a few other like new artworks that you would have seen, including our new logo. So I'd like to just point those out. Esports Wrap is going to be coming back shortly, so take a look probably next week, Tuesday, for that at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm not going to bore you with too much else. Last week we just didn't have an episode due to a death in the family, so I hope you can let that one slide. But today we're going to be talking about privacy versus personalization when it comes to technology. We're going to be talking about the Android 9 operating system, which is called Pi, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. So while we wait for Vicky to come, I will just jump right into it, so we're not wasting time. Oh, I did remember one last thing. If you do have questions during the show, then, or at any point in time, technology questions, and you want those kind of things answered, what you could do is send us an email to tech@morecookies.com, or moretech, use the hashtag moretech on Twitter, or just message us like Taladrea did in our Discord chat. So before we get into everything, I'll just answer her questions while we wait, so that they're not just sitting there. So she asks, how do people stream their content from Twitch to Instagram? And that's an interesting one. Both Instagram and Instagram TV actually don't necessarily allow this natively, that is. Now, there has been someone that's been working on something that does allow it, and it does seem to work. Now, what a lot of people are using is OBS, which is a streaming system. And so what they're doing is they're using some of the API that Instagram has allowed and put out there, along with OBS and some third-party scripts. And you can find that on GitHub. Let me see if I could find it properly. It is called Instagram-API. Is the API that they allowed for it. but I'm trying to find the person that has actually set it up. And it seems like there are a few that really have been working on it. Instagram photo wall is a plugin, allows you to put images in Instagram. That's not really what we're looking for. The real issue with it comes because there's no real server for anyone to connect to. And so with no server, then you can't really say stream to it normally. That's because they really and truly want you to use your smartphones to be streaming your content. So therein lies the issue. I had this before. Let's see quick. Okay, yeah. So what the GitHub is called is Instagram Live-PHP. It's made by a guy named J. Roy. He's been working on it for a little bit of time now, and it's only been tested in Windows. He has no idea if it works in Unix-based systems, so that includes Macs. But feel free to try it out. And a lot of people have tried this out, and it seems to have worked for them. Hey there, Nally boy. So, if you do want to stream your content to Instagram or Instagram TV, this might be something that you're going to be wanting to take a look at. But do expect for it to be a little sketchy. So you need to know how to install PHP, run the composer, clone a repository, actually run the actual source code, along with knowing how to move your way around a PHP file. So it's not for the faint of heart. I will put it that way. And Taladrea's second question was a question based on something that we had posted on our Twitter, which was asking about, rather letting people know about a streaming system that allowed for closed captioned real-time translation, essentially. And it's fairly extensive in what they're requesting for it. And I forgot to put this thing on Do Not Disturb. I apologize. Sure, I can link that in the Discord chat right after the show. No problem, Tally. Essentially what it is that it will allow you to... How should I put it? As you're talking, it's going to try and transcribe what you're saying. So that happens at the bottom or wherever you put it on your screen. Now, it's... How fast it does it is... It's fairly on point. But again, it's translating whatever you're saying, so it may take a few seconds to actually transcribe properly. But it, for the most part, catches up to date fairly quickly, at least from the experiences that I've seen. Secondly, when it comes to how accurate it is, that I'm not sure, because admittedly, the people that I've seen that have been using it, they are, for the most part, speaking fairly bluntly. That's probably not the best way to put it, but they're speaking at a way that it's fairly easy for this program, or this service, to understand them. You throw in some accent inside there, some background noise, some dialect, I can't promise that this will necessarily be accurate, especially if you have any kind of patois, like Jamaican, Bahamian, whatever it is, and so you're saying, "Boy, hey, come look here." It may not actually recognize any of that, other than "come here," and it may put some random words inside there or some random spelling. I haven't tested it at myself, to be quite honest, so there is that. So I can't really speak to that all too much, but I hope that gives you a bit more of an idea with that, Tally. So moving on into the actual topics. By the way, thank you for being our first person to ask ask questions in that format. Like that's awesome. Thank you. Now, yeah, your accent could have it boned. Yeah, you're right, Tally. But from what I remember, you might be able to get through it. Like, you don't have a serious accent, like a Scottish accent, for example. Um, which, even the way they type can be kind of, weird. If you're Scottish, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't look at me weird. Um, but for the most part, it should work for most persons who speak fairly well and are understandable. At least that's what I'm told and what I've gotten from it. So, privacy versus personalization. The issue really and truly comes because of what we've noticed in the past few months. And we kind of touched on it with the GDPR happening, with the dark patterns and stuff like this. So we're kind of still going along this privacy trend. And so part of that, which I really want people to understand, is that we are trying to raise the level of understanding when it comes to stuff like this, because it's really weird when things are happening but people don't quite understand what it is that's happening. So we have had persons who have asked for, and I've seen quite literally on Twitter, where someone asks for an export from Spotify of their personal information. And keep in mind, a lot of these companies do allow you to request this information. They kind of have to if they want to follow GDPR. The issue is what you do with it after that. So, for example, this guy asked Spotify for his information and was then subsequently freaked out because he saw pretty much all his search history. He saw all the things he liked, all of his playlists, and all that kind of information, and it freaked him out. It's like, why do you have so much information? Why do you need this, that, and the next? But then you have to remember, things like Spotify, these are services that are meant to try and personalize themselves and curate themselves towards your tastes, your likes, and so on and so forth. So it has to keep this information readily available somehow. Otherwise, how would it know that you like Wu-Tang Clan? How would it know that you like Justin Bieber? How would it know that around this kind of day, you typically like to listen to something that's relaxing or some maybe death metal? It would just be a bland experience that would be the same across the board for everyone. Now, this can be both a good thing and a bad thing. So if we took a look at what happened with the iPhone and iOS 12 and what they're handling with when it comes to dark patterns and keeping people's information. For example, and I'll bring it up again because we talked about it in previous episodes. When the iPhone is like the newest version of the iPhone and the iOS comes out and everyone has it, it pretty much will set it, and this is happening on Macs as well, where it will no longer really show any trackable information. Essentially, all iPhones and Macs will get the same advertising because they're going to appear as the exact same thing, because it's not going to be able to recognize, oh, well, this is an iPhone from here or this and that and the next. It's not going to allow for that to happen. So everyone's going to get the same experience roughly. There's going to be no personalization with ads. It's not going to be like, okay, well, I went on Amazon and I took a look at these dress pants, and so I'm going to get advertisements about dress pants on a few other websites. That's not going to happen. For the most part, you'll probably just see something that's happening maybe in your area, just because it knows it may know which carrier you're on, maybe, or which country you're from, which it more than likely will know. And so it could say, Okay, well, you're from the United States. Let's show you an advertisement for Verizon, for Comcast, for Best Buy. If you're in the Bahamas, for example, it may say for BTC, for uh, Kelly's, for the food store. This, that, on the next, essentially. But it won't get you personalized information to say, you know, well, we know you like to look at lettuce or kale, whatever. So it's not going to give you that breakdown of information to say, let's try to really make this personal. Let's try to actually get the things that interest you. And so that's where the differentiation between privacy and personalization comes in, because the two don't necessarily match all that well. So therein lies the issue. So what do we do? Personally speaking, and it would have been great if Vicky was here for this so we could actually go back and I could hear what she had to think. But when it comes to privacy, there are elements of privacy that can be placed. So for example, this is where a great thing where blockchains come in. Because let's say the website, let's say the website or let's say Spotify, since we originally were talking about Spotify. Let's say it tracked all that information, but it kept it encrypted in a blockchain. Or just encrypted on a whole, so only the system really knew what it was. And that in itself is going to be very, very difficult for the system to know this information without being able to expose it otherwise. Hey, welcome to the show, Paul. How are you doing? Hey, welcome there, Adam. Welcome to the show. How you guys doing? Oh, wow. Okay. Hey there, I am Jordan. Welcome to the show. Wow. Okay. Hey, Ski Robo and Definity Rush and Moana. Okay. Well, welcome to the show, guys. I hope you guys enjoy the content and decide to subscribe, to follow, and be a part of the show. If you have any questions, of course, as per usual, with the show, ask them inside the chat, and I'll answer them, so long as they're relevant. But blockchain could maybe alleviate that when it comes to keeping tracks of information without really necessarily exposing it to third parties or even the company that's running it. So for example, because of how it pretty much hashes the information, it would make sure that it stays secure. It keeps a track of it, so the system could always get that information and find out that information for you. But at the same point, it's still logging the information. So it still knows and it's still logging that you're listening to Madonna at 12 o'clock in the morning. And it hopefully doesn't know that you're crying your eyes out. But for the most part, these things need this information. And to say that, why do you have this, doesn't necessarily make the best argument. Facebook needs this information to curate the timeline and provide relevant ads. Some of you may not agree with that, especially the ads part, because, well, for the most part, who likes ads? But then again, certain ads are pretty good to have. They give relevant information that might actually be interesting. Granted, most of mine that I see on Facebook is not relevant at all, and I'm not really looking to check your Kickstarter. I'm not really interested in these weird products or services or things that you have. So yeah, that's a little sketchy for me right there. But sometimes they are worthwhile. Like there was a service that I saw today on Facebook. I'm not going to say the name, but it took me to a website that was actually something that I was kind of looking for on a lot of different sites and not on Facebook at all. So I'm kind of interested in how they actually decided to show that to me. But that's a topic for maybe another day. Um, Now, when it comes to the personalization side, like I said, a lot of these things need to know. Pandora was built specifically, for example, to learn which kind of music you like. Spotify has come along and is trying to take over that space. Um, Facebook, Twitter, they all kind of try to gather up information that people are interested in. And so they all need to track information at some kind of how. So you're not necessarily going to get away from it. I think it's the best you're going to be able to get is just making sure that the information that is being stored properly. GDPR was the whole right to be forgotten thing, so you can always request your information and then ask for it to be deleted. That's a thing. So you can do that. It may take some time, may take some effort with emailing and making sure that it's done properly, but it's there. And so if you don't want these websites keeping your information, or you want to make sure that everything's been deleted, that's a thing. There's also the other option where they're working on right now, so that you can actually move your information from, let's say, Facebook to Twitter to Google to whatever other social media system there is. It's actually something that Google, Facebook, and Twitter are backboning to make sure that other places that want to share this information have a means to easily but securely transfer this information around. So for example, you wanted to make, just like how Facebook has the login information, like you go to a website, they say, do you want to log in with Facebook? You log in with your Facebook. Now this platform has your information, some of it at least, and then this would allow for an actual system, let's say like Twitch, to come in, build its own login system like it does now, and tie in with Facebook, Google, which also controls Google Plus and YouTube, and Twitter, so that all the information can be shared depending on what is requested to be shared. So it could take your picture from Facebook, it could take your name, it could take your birthday, it could take your email address, your friends, depending on the level that is requested. And I think this is where they need to be careful, because they really should build it in so that the user sets what is allowed, not the company. Because admittedly, there are places that you want to try to grab your friends on there, like let's say a new social media platform comes out that you really, really like and you want your friends to move over to, and then you find it's really hard to actually invite them because then you don't know their email addresses, or you don't really have a way to say, hey, let's move over to here, other than directly PMing them or sending them some kind of message in some form or format. So it's not always the best, admittedly. Now, moving on from that is Android 9. Android 9 was in development for a while, and we knew it was going to be named P something, like something starting with the letter P. And we knew it was going to be some kind of treat, not necessarily a dessert, but it could be a snack, it could be something, it's typically as a treat. So a lot of people were thinking peppermint, pumpkin pie, pistachio, like the pistachio nut, because people do actually enjoy pistachios and just by itself. And give me one quick moment. It seems Vicky is finally here. Okay, and we're back now. So we were talking about, I've just finished talking about privacy versus personalization. And like that example that we saw before when it came to Spotify. And the guy freaking out about like all the information that they had about him.
Yeah.
And pretty much saying, you kind of have to give away some of your privacy if you want stuff like that. I think the best option that you can really get is if you make sure that that information is secured, like maybe using a blockchain or some kind of encryption to make sure that that information cannot just be used by anyone. Did you have any thoughts on that topic in particular?
I had a few thoughts, whereas I get where some companies get it, like when they're invading too much privacy in order to like figure with to sell you, like when we spoke about the privacy laws before in the previous episode, and I brought up like how some companies may, like if I visit a website, some foreign companies may already read like my web browsing history or like my data that's out there, and they can therefore change almost their website or like adjust their website to target me, which is it's a pretty genius marketing idea, and I get why they do that. Persons feel like give like a personal connection with somebody, and then they decide they want to spend money. I feel like some people probably spend money with it, just like willy nilly because of the personal connections. So I get that, but at the same time, it's more or less was how much information you guys want to take from me. Like you said, it's just like taking proper precautions as to which data you allow them to take and which data you don't want them to take.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, beyond that, then we were then moving into Android 9, and I was explaining, what people were expecting it to be either peppermint, pumpkin pie, which was what I was thinking, or pistachio.
Is pistachio a fruit? I mean, not a fruit. Is pistachio a dessert?
No, but it's supposed to be like based on treats, and so people eat nuts as treats. Thanks for the love there, Trippy. But so it's kind of weird that some people thought of that. Plus, there's things like pistachio ice cream, and so on and so forth. So could be, but at the same time, so could peanut butter or pecan.
Peanut butter is a treat.
People eat peanut butter as a treat. Peanut butter sandwiches.
That's lunch.
Some people
Well,
eat
I consider it to be like a lunch or like a snack.
I mean, there are people that quite literally go in and just like have a jar of peanut butter. Like, I don't know, but there are people like that. So, I don't know. That's what some people were thinking. Unfortunately, what we ended up with, I think a lot of the community is a little disappointed in this. Is pie. Like, it's Android Pie.
Pie.
Not a particular kind of pie. No.
Just pie.
Just pie. Pie. Why pie? Why?
I was expecting I don't know. I wanted it to be something with more pizzazz. Just pie.
A lot of people were hoping for more than just pie. Like, that's why people were saying pumpkin pie. Or something else with pizza pie. Or pizza. Jeez, Jesus. Pizza is a treat in a sense. Like, I don't know. There's so many different ways they could have gone about this. But then it ended up with just pie. And I mean, it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because then it can incorporate all kinds of pie. And there is the debate between cake or pie. But it feels lackadaisical. And also didn't necessarily have the same kind of like rollout some of the other versions of Android did.
Oh, I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't marketed similar to how some of the other ones were, like how like what they did with Android Oreo. I felt like that was marketed nice. You know, they had the little guy, it's the Oreo, and they had like little gimmicks here and there. But like the main, like the main logo, which was the P and like the little spiral circles, kind of threw everybody off.
That's
Just
why
didn't
some
match
people
at
thought
all
it
to
was
what.
peppermint for like peppermint candy canes because it
Yeah,
was
because
like
that's what it matched.
ah,
Totally, unless it's supposed to be no, unless it's supposed to be a full end of the pie and the cross.
well, I don't know about the crust because it
And the
changes.
little thing at the bottom.
Maybe I'm getting
I
a
know someone. Oh wait, never mind. No, because it was like I was thinking orange and red. It was purple and red. Yeah,
um
this didn't match
yeah,
anything at all.
no. But I will say this. I mean, it did have some interesting stuff built inside of it. Um we've already gone over a lot of it inside the previous episode, so we're not going to spend the time with that. But one thing that threw me was that with everything that they advertised Android 9 to have, there was one main key feature, well, actually, two that kind of are wrapped up together, that went missing. And it actually having it, Android 9 went live without these features actually being baked in. And that's a little weird when you're like advertising an entire operating system having these things included. These things are the wind down feature, which is, you know, you set timers and then it goes to grayscale. And you know, it's meant to relax your eyes, get you, because there's less colors, you're more likely to put down your phone. And then that's part of the digital wellness feature. So for example, we go into my phone. Um, I actually had to. So you go inside here, and then you can see my digital wellness for the day, and it gives it a nice little uh, color format. It says which apps I used mainly, how many times I unlocked my phone. So I unlocked it for 38 times. I had 414 notifications. I don't have any dashboards set. My wind down includes grayscale and do not disturb, so they all will fall. Both of those will fall under wind down now. You can reduce interruptions by managing notifications and setting your do not disturb. If you click on the actual like chart, it breaks it down by days to say like how you've been using your app for the day. Well, your phone for the day. Now I just got this installed, but it already has a few days there. And that's part of it right there. Like, why do I have to install this if it's something that should have been baked in? Um, but on the side here, it does also allow you to set timers. So you can actually say, you know, only allow me to use it for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or a custom timer. And then, you know, it'll be like, you already used up your allotted time. Do you want more time? And try to persuade you not to, essentially. But then again, the question remains, this is something that you actually have to sign up for, whereas it was marketed as being built into the system. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I thought it was built in as well. I didn't realize it was more like a sign up basis. Nope. Glad I'm not a Google user. Mine will be baked in to the app. Well, to the software.
you do realize that Siri was inside the iPhone 4 before they released the 4S, and as soon as they released the 4S, they took away the feature from the 4, right? And it was like, hey, look at
Yeah.
this new feature that, you guys had, but we're taking it away now. So y'all had
Well,
it,
mine is
but
baked
everyone else
in.
has it now.
Mine is baked in compared to having it sign up. Like, I just gotta install it and it works. How? By the way, weren't you running beta for Android P?
I was, which was
So how did
exactly.
you switch over?
The switchover happens fairly easily. It just says, the new operating system is now out. Do you want to update? It was like a 45 megabyte download to switch over because most of the code was already there. So I just downloaded that. It finished in like 5 minutes. Restarted my phone, and I was on Android 9.
Oh, so it's no longer beta. So you don't have like a beta profile there.
Nope.
That's so much easier than iOS is on. Oh man.
Now I will admit, originally when you first wanted to beta test stuff, it wasn't this easy. You actually had to flash the Android system onto it, so it would wipe all your information. At least that was the suggested way to do it, to make sure you didn't run into any issues. Nowadays, well, you just sign up for it. You get a notification on your phone saying, hey, download the beta or the dev version, and away you go. You don't need to wipe it, but you probably should wipe it after you jump into one of those things to avoid any information crossovers that may conflict and cause some issues, which is probably the reason why I was having that lag, because after I switched to 9, I don't really have that lag anymore.
You're on the rare few. And that's like I was one of the rare few that was having a nasty lag.
Well, I mean, not Artemis. He is one of the owners, I believe, for Android Police. I think he pretty much only posts on Google Plus for the most part, and I think that was where the post came from, or it may have been from Twitter. I'm not 100% sure. I know he kind of uses both, but mainly Google Plus, or at least he may have stopped using Google Plus. I don't remember. But if he's experiencing it, then he has a wider number of people that he could speak to, that work at Android Police as well, to ask them what's happening with their devices. So I don't know, but I do know now that I'm currently not having any issues with mine.
That's good.
And even opening up the camera is a lot snappier than it was before on the beta. So they must have optimized something. But I still hate that they called it Pi.
I really wanted a more pizzazz name. I wasn't just expecting pie. I honestly wouldn't have mind pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin spice, even, I would have accepted. Just because of, the memes and how the hype goes about that every time that time of the year comes around.
Oh my gosh, and they could have had the Android guy in only has a gender. Anyway, the mascot. The Android mascot and a little pumpkin body. Oh man, they could have get off on persons that spice lattes, and they could have the latte cup.
Yep. See?
It would have been so cute.
They could have partnered up with Starbucks.
Yes.
Just like they did for Kit Kat. But hey, what do I know?
I remember Kit Kat.
Yeah. Okay. And then we had the moving past that, it seems that we've also, as of today, had a new phone launch, which is
and extra stuff.
which the new phone was a Samsung Galaxy Note 9. Um, funny enough, their most recent, well, one of the most recent advertisements listed pretty much every Note phone that they've made, but they forgot to add in the Note 7, or at least they didn't add it in intentionally. So it's almost like it feels like they're avoiding it because it's a blemish on their history, but we all know it's there. They have admitted
Yeah.
that it's there. And even the Note 9 is, people are saying like it's the anti Note 7 just because of how they presented it. So let me just see something really quick. Whoa, I'm getting some funky feedback from your side there, Vicky. Uh,
So there. Is it?
no, it seems better now.
Ah, okay. Cool.
Okay. So essentially, the still hearing it. I think it pretty much anytime you move, like I'm hearing you moving.
No, you heard it. This is very odd. Heard it now?
Only like when you move your
Am I
arm and stuff.
moving? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
My hand still.
Um. Okay, so for starters, there's the whole battery thing, like with the Note 7. Obviously, people were concerned this phone's going to go up in flames, which, the Note 8 came out. They're like, oh, yeah, we did our own new type of battery testing to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. And they
Yeah.
kind of redeemed themselves a little bit with that by actually making a industry standard kind of test, which no other, I think even up to now, smartphone company has really developed. And they did that with the Note 8. With the Note 9, they used the same test, but they took it a step further from what I understand, and actually had two external companies that actually do these kinds of tests as well, run tests on the batteries to make sure, and both of them also gave the go ahead with these batteries. So for the most part, these batteries are supposedly secure. So
And making sure the mistake don't happen again. And like they took their time considering I think last year model just had like the standard battery. I think they bumped it up a little bit this year, correct?
yeah, they actually bumped it up to 4,000
Yeah.
milliamps.
They
So
took their time with that to make sure
yeah.
to make sure the Note 7 incident doesn't happen again.
Well, they bumped it up, so they say, is to make sure that. Remember, their whole thing for a few years was like, um. By the way, we heard that.
Oh, sorry.
um, was to make sure that well, how should I put it? Their commercials were targeted at wall huggers, essentially people who have to keep charging their phones. So their thing is put in a bigger battery so that you don't have to charge up so often. You can have an all day phone essentially. So that's where they were going with it. Granted, they then added a bigger display, so it's now 6.4 inches. It's still Infinity display.
That's the Bluetooth stylus now, which is also going to take a battery.
Exactly. So there is that as well.
The neon one looks like a mini lightsaber. It's like I was watching a video today, like when the person was on, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's like a mini lightsaber in his hand." I like that they add like colors to
Yeah,
it now, though.
the colors are interesting. Like, okay, so here's the thing that
And
got me.
each color phone has their own color stylus, correct?
Yes, but there's the weird thing about it. Black has a black stylus, purple has a purple stylus, brown has a brown stylus, and blue has a yellow stylus.
Yellow stylus.
Like, What?
I don't know why they didn't. They could have given like a little neon blue if they were going for like the neon look. They seem to have gone for that. They could have given it a neon blue instead of like a neon yellow sheet green color.
That's what I thought. And then if you want yellow, just make a yellow version. Though then again, I don't know how well that would sell.
The banana
Yeah,
version.
banana yellow. I don't know how well that would sell. Um, I don't think like the only bright yellow phone that I've seen before is like a Nokia, like the old Nokia Asha phones.
I remember the yellow iPhone 5C. I don't know how it sold,
That's true. There was
but
the
they did
5C.
have that.
There,
Yes.
but the 5C, if I remember correctly, did not sell all that well on a whole.
I had one. I thought it was pretty neat. It took a lot of because I went with that phone. I rocked caseless for like most of the time that I had it. I think I got it in like September, and I didn't put a case on it until like July, August. And from then, straight up, the phone like drops in and so on held up pretty nicely. Dropped, and I was taking a ceramics class at the same time. I used to have a better wheel with me, so it hold up to like clay and a bunch of dirt. So they hold up pretty nicely, even though they didn't sell well.
I think that's I think that's probably the reason why they didn't really go and focus in with colors again like that. Like you haven't really
Yeah.
noticed them do that since the 5C. I
And
don't
like
know.
I've been seeing like a lot of rumors saying that they're going to do it with this year's iPhone, but I'm waiting to see it happen till 100%. I mean, I'm waiting to see it confirmed 100% before I would believe them. But then the thing I don't get is that persons that ask for more colors, then when you give them colors,
They
they
don't
don't
sell.
purchase them. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the issue right there. Um, what I found interesting as well is they went with a horizontal camera and flash setup. So instead of having it where
Good.
the iPhone has it like that, like a
Oh,
traffic light,
yes. That's
um,
exactly what it looks like.
it has it more like how some of the traffic lights in the States are with like red, yellow, green, like that
Yeah.
across the board. So it's a different kind of traffic light. Um, and they have the fingerprint sensor right underneath it. They say
Maybe the
that it's easier to reach, but I don't know about that because
don't believe that. Yeah. So I was watching a video today as well speaking about that. And I was watching MKBHD's video. And he was like, for someone with big hands like him, it's okay. But like persons with small hands, it's gonna be like a real stretch. Like me, I have baby hands. So so I know I won't be like I would literally have to have the phone in my hand. I have to like stretch my finger in the back or something in order for me to be able to unlock my phone.
and that's the problem. Like they recognize the problem with the S9, and so they readjusted where you put your finger for it. The Note
Yeah.
9, they should have recognized the same. It's a bigger phone, so you're gonna have to drop the fingerprint
So
sensor further
yeah,
down.
maybe it was rumored to be the last one.
It's rumored to be the last Note, but you know how rumors are, they're not necessarily always true.
True. Maybe next year with the Note 10, they may recognize it then and adjust it. I guess this is like a trial and error. They moved it up. They did bigger screen. I mean, bigger phone. Kept the fingerprint the same at the same placement. Let's see how like the consumers take it. If not, if they don't take it well, then they're gonna probably adjust it and like drop it a bit.
Yep.
But then that also, they'd have to. So you can't have like a wide space between the camera and the fingerprint. Oh, because they have like a nice proportion on at the top there.
I
And
mean,
when they drop it
it
down,
would have been good just to have it two cameras, the flash, and then the fingerprint sensor underneath it. That would break everything further down and still give you the space that you need.
Yeah. So you don't want to put too much distance between camera and fingerprint because then it's gonna look odd.
I mean, I got a fair amount of distance between this.
Yeah, but that isn't
And
that
then,
bad. Just like your camera on the side.
right, but see, that's part of it. You just need to have the camera here, the flash here, and to be at, because I've seen the Note 9 in person already. I've seen it from like a week or two ago, and I actually compared it to the. I actually put my phone over on top of it, and it's only just slightly bigger than the Pixel 2 XL. So the placement of the fingerprint scanner quite literally could work, because I mean you've tried it, and I think you were able to like put your finger on the fingerprint scanner pretty easily, if I remember correctly.
I think so. Yeah, I think I was. I think I was.
So
Isn't too bad.
right. So I mean, depending, it might work. More testing is needed, I guess you could say. But I think what would have been easier is just having it here and then just having it like maybe around here. But even when you're holding the phone, it's not necessarily just something like you just miss and touch, like sometimes you do here. Granted, this is the natural part of touching it, and so they try to leave it there. If you just need to do it like that, that may hurt your finger over a period of time. So I mean, depending on how it actually and where it actually sits, we'll have to see.
Child, the person too by the Note 9 will be the test dummy. Not to say it like that, but
Wow.
not to say it like that, but they would be like the test dummy instead. Like that's what it is. Like you give somebody a product, see how they take to it, and like you develop the product for them all later on.
Now, admittedly, there's a lot of extra little features that they've been packing into the hardware. So the lowest version of storage is 128 gigs, which is nice. And the highest that they have,
hit that bad boy, the big boy.
the big boy essentially 512 gigs, and then you can add on an additional 512 gigs because Samsung is rolling out a new memory card that is 512 gigs.
Just walking around with a terabyte.
Exactly, you are literally walking around with something that has more space than some computers, which is sad when you really think about it.
We're about to hit that age when phone storage start hitting terabytes.
Yeah, we are.
I feel like in the future, like the base model will be like 1 terabyte, and like the max is gonna be like 4 or 3.
Well, Samsung is already making 4 terabyte SSD hard drives.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so might not be too far off. But they have a new integrated chip as well. So that's for the CPU and the GPU. So for the speed of the actual operating system, along with the graphics processor. So like when you're actually doing anything graphics intensive, like gaming or moving things around that actually needs animations. The CPU is 33% faster and the GPU is 23% faster because they're mainly using their new 10 nanometer technology for the chips, which is the smaller essentially it is, the better, because there's less travel time between the capacitors. This one's
not supposedly liquid cooling.
Supposedly liquid cooling. Now they've said they've had liquid cooling before, and it quite literally was just a gel in some copper wiring. Well, copper casing. That isn't water cooling, but they're calling this water carbon cooling. So it might be the same thing. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait until someone like iFixit tears down the phone.
Tear it down. Yeah. Too.
Welcome to the show, Z Furia. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. But They also have it with an intelligent, quote unquote, intelligent camera. They're using the exact same hardware that they did with the S9, though. And so it's not necessarily going to take better pictures like the Pixel 2 does, or Google camera does, essentially, using the AI learning system that it has. What their own does is that it recognizes things like flowers, food, and landscapes, and adjusts the color of the photo for you when you take it.
Which is nice.
It's
And they also have the feature whereas if you're about to take a photo and the photo isn't clear, or like if there's any like discrepancies with the photo, it's gonna alert you right away, help you adjust it, and you can quickly take the photo and you take the photo faster.
right. Like if someone has their eyes closed, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like you're trying to focus on something and the focus loses, but when you take the picture, it's gonna alert you. But it's supposed to alert you, and then you can adjust it and have to take the picture.
Exactly. On another note, what they've also done is that you can now use the S Pen because it's now Bluetooth enabled. You can use the button on it to take a photo from a distance. So you don't necessarily need to, like, you could set it up somewhere, stand back with the screen facing you so you can actually see yourself, make sure that you have a good photo, press the button, and you've now have a selfie, in a sense.
Yes. It's like the olden day when you used to have hit the timer and you used to run around and like click the button. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting concept. And what they've done with the S Pen is also interesting as well, because with the Bluetooth enabled capabilities, it allows you to take photos like that. You can use it for presentations to move back and forth. They did say that they're working with enabling an SDK kit. So that essentially means that developers of applications or just of anything essentially can then say, okay, that's going to end up with you getting banned. Yeah.
Not cool.
Not cool at all.
And you're Mexican.
I'm not. I'm not Mexican at all. So there we go. Just like clear that up. So moving on. I thought I banned him. Let's do this really quick. And banned. And report for harassment and trolling. Okay, so moving past that bit of ignorance. I apologize to everyone who saw that. Now, we were talking about the S Pen and the SDK. That essentially means that any developer can also enable it to work with their application. So, for example, if you are running a suite of apps, let's say for this example, let's use Microsoft. They already have it working with their PowerPoints and whatnot, but let's say they weren't. Essentially, Microsoft can go to them and say, hey, well, we want to be able to move between our slides. And, we want to use this SDK file. They get access to it. They then build it in, and then you can use it. What is key that I think they need to work on is making sure they have a list of all the applications that are actually enabling the use of the S Pen. Thank you for following Zephyria. Well, Zephyria. Because if you don't have a... I hope that's the power. Power just went off.